If you're serious about your business, you need to build systems. And you have to find a great tool like money.com to do it.
Okay, everybody, it looks like you can hear me now. Right now, let me know if you could hear me and we'll begin. Okay, we're all good now? Okay, good. Sorry about that, everybody. All right, so let's start with ad valorem. What does ad valorem mean? Ad valorem. Ad valorem is Latin for according to value. Good. You see it with tax and whatnot. Okay, non-conforming use. Non-conforming use. What is non-conforming use? Non-conforming use would be when you get a permission to do something does not conform with local zoning laws. If your picture's blurry, just change it to 720 HD. 720 HD. HD. Okay, good job, everybody. Okay, what's a FICO score? Who knows what a FICO score is? Anybody ever heard of a FICO score? Alejandro says, help, my test in 2 weeks. I discovered. Help. Isn't that what we're doing now? I believe I'm helping you now. That's the idea. Okay, a FICO score is your credit score. Anybody know what it stands for? So FICA stands for Fair Isaac Corporation. It's one of the ways decided to make you loan. They look at your credit. They look at your debt-to-income ratio. But what's the most important thing when they make a loan? What do you guys think? What's the most important thing when you make a loan? What do you guys think? What's the most important thing? It's not your credit or your income. It's the property. Nice job, Amy. It's the property itself. If the property does not hold its value, they're not going to make you a loan. Good. It's the property itself. Okay, escheat. Escheat. What does escheat mean? What is escheat? Escheat is when the government takes over the property and there's no heirs or no will or anything like that. It's one of the 4 government powers. What are the other 3 government powers? What are the other 3 government powers? The other 3 government powers would be police power, eminent domain, taxation. So that means the four government powers would be police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. Police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. Good. What is the difference between police power and eminent domain? What is the difference between police power and eminent domain? So police power, they tell you how to use it. Eminent domain, they can take it away from you. What is the process they use to take it away when they use eminent domain? What do you guys think? So you use the process of condemnation. Condemnation. Think about like when your property is condemned, you can't use it anymore. That's condemnation. Okay, good job, everybody. So that's condemnation. And then when the government does not give you just compensation, so under condemnation, the just compensation must be paid when they take that property from you. When they do not give you just compensation, what can you do? What can you do? The answer would be inverse condemnation. Inverse condemnation. So when you go after the government, inverse condemnation. Okay, good job, everybody. Looks like you all got that. So remember, eminent domain, they take it from you. Police power, they more or less tell you how to use it. What is an example of police power? Who can give me an example of police power? What is an example of police power? Muno says, does eminent domain happen? Yes. It's when the government needs to take your property for public use, or when you have corrupt businessmen leveraging government officials to use eminent domain to get people out of their house. That's a whole nother chit-chat. Okay, so example police power would be building codes, zoning, things of that nature. Okay, good. An enforceable contract. What has to be had for an enforceable contract? What do you guys think? Enforceable contract. So you get the contract. A lot of you guys are naming the 4 essentials of a contract. What are the 4 essentials of a valid contract? Said mutual consent, consideration, lawful object, and capable parties. Mutual consent, consideration, lawful object, and capable parties. Without one of those 4 essentials, it's not a contract. What is the difference between a valid contract and a voidable contract? What is the difference between a valid contract and a voidable contract? What do you guys think? So a voidable contract means it can be rescinded by one of the parties. Can you guys give me an example of when a contract would be voidable? So if you're under duress, it would be voidable, or if you're threatened, that's essentially what duress is, or if you were lied to, but you still want to go through with the purchase of the property, that makes it voidable, not void. Tenant improvement allowance. I love doing this vocabulary because it gives everybody, like, it's our way of doing like a general summary of things we learn. Obviously, we don't hit on everything, but it kind of hits on different topics. So what's tenant improvement allowances? Tenant improvement allowance is giving the landlord a certain amount, giving the tenant money to improve the property. You see it a lot with commercial property. So if somebody wants to rent out the property, be a dentist, the landlord doesn't know how to make a good dentist office, they'll give them some money to create what they need. Interim occupancy agreement. Interim occupancy agreement. What's that? So interim occupancy is when possession and closing do not take place the exact same time. It's not the same as like renting out your property, creating a lease. You're talking about just a few days. The buyer wants to move in a little early, or the seller wants to stay a little later. It's just an agreement where somebody will be compensated for that little overage time or when it doesn't coordinate. Option or. Option or. What is a option or? Allison said the same as a leaseback. It is not the same as a leaseback. A leaseback is a long-term agreement. This is just for a few days. We're talking about the interim occupancy agreement. Option or is somebody giving an option. As an optionee would somebody who receives an option. Good. Remember the OREE rule. OR gives, EE receives. You're welcome, Allison. I was talking about this yesterday. I got in an Uber yesterday, and the Uber driver recognized me. He's like, "Oh, I'm studying for my real estate exam. Can you teach me everything during this Uber ride?" I was like, "Good one." And he was like, "No, really, can you help me?" I was like, okay. So I spent the whole Uber ride explaining option contracts and whatnot. It's kind of awkward. I was like, "You're kidding, right?" Okay, here we go. Income approach. A grantee has nothing to do with an option contract. So when you're a grantee, part of an option, they have nothing to do with each other. Okay, what's the income approach? It's an appraisal approach. So everybody write this down. It converts income into value. Looks like a lot of you guys already did. It converts income into value. converts income into value? Converts income into value. What are the other two approaches you need to know? What are the other two approaches you need to know? In case you're wondering, when we're talking about converts income into value, we're talking about commercial property. You would pay a lot more for a property that brings a lot of income versus one that does not, even if those two properties are structurally the same in the same area and all the other comparables are similar. But if one brings in a lot more income for one reason or another, that has value, and you pay for that. Okay, so the other approach is the cost replacement approach and the market data approach. What is the cost replacement approach? What is the cost replacement approach? So the cost replacement approach would basically be how much does it cost to replace it brand new? What kind of properties would you use the cost replacement approach for? What kind of properties would you use the cost replacement approach? So it'd be like libraries, schools, police stations, things of that nature. Things that don't really have comps and don't bring in income. Basically what we're talking about. And what's the market data approach? What's the market data approach? What's the market data approach? Market data approach is when you compare your property to other similar ones. Good. Equitable title. What is equitable title? Who knows? Equitable title. Equitable title. Equitable title gives you the right to use and possess and gain equity at a later date, as opposed to legal title, which does what? What does legal title do? Kim Ann says, what if a brand new house burns down? Yeah, I guess use the cost approach to find value. Okay, legal title will represent the right to sell. Okay, stigmatized property. What's a stigmatized property? Okay, it's a property regarded because undesirable events have occurred. It says there's bad vibes in there that you want nothing to do with. Okay, contingency clause. Contingency clause. What's that? What's a contingency clause? So it's a contract provision that says for one thing to happen, it's contingent upon another thing happening. For example, you're not buying the house unless the inspection goes through. Me getting this house is contingent upon the inspection passing. Okay, that's a contingency clause. Abby says, can you go over boot? Boot is part of a 1031 tax-deferred exchange. It's just the difference in the value of the properties for when you put the money from one into the other, and it's the taxable difference in a 1031 exchange. Okay, material fact. What is a material fact? So material fact is something you would see in plain sight. For example, a leaky roof. It's an obvious defect, and so you must disclose it. Basically, as a real estate agent, you're not an inspector. You're not there to diagnose why it is. So, for example, a material fact would be the door is not closing properly. You would not say the door is not closing properly because of foundation issues. That goes beyond your pay grade. That's for an inspector to say. Okay? It's things that are obvious to plain sight that you cannot deny. So, for example, if the person buying it said, why didn't you tell me the door doesn't close properly? You can't be like, that's not my job. Well, that's a material fact. You should have disclosed that. Okay. Implied contract. What's an implied contract? Implied contract. That basically says looks like a duck, acts like a duck, walks like a duck. It must be a contract. All right? It's implied by your actions. What you do and what you say can imply a contract. All right? Some of you guys gave an example of a restaurant. That's excellent. When you sit down and order food at a restaurant, they give you the bill. You can't say, no, I didn't sign that, I'd pay that, not paying it. It's implied that when you sat down and you order, you would pay the prices on the menu. Okay, joint tenancy. Joint tenancy. What is a joint tenancy? It's also something I went over in the Uber ride yesterday. Joint tenancy. It was a long Uber ride too. It was all the way from Palm Springs, Palm Desert area to Los Angeles. It's been a long time to talk about this stuff. What's that, Murphy's Law? Okay, so joint tenancy to tip. Time, title, interest, and possession. Time, the four unities. Time, title, interest, and possession. Okay, good. It also has the right of survivorship. The right of survivorship. Tenancy in common would just have what? So joint tenancy has time, title, interest, possession. Tenancy in common has what? I actually didn't mind helping the guy out. He was a nice guy. He just caught me off guard. Would I do an in-person class in Los Angeles? Nope. I don't really do the in-person classes because I could reach a lot more people this way. It just wouldn't be effective. So when you guys ask about the in-person classes, not that I wouldn't love to meet you all, I would. It's just my reach and be able to help so many more people is much greater doing this than doing it in person. Okay, so you have joint tenancy, time, title, interest, possession. Tenancy in common just has the right of possession. And then you have that right of survivorship. Right of survivorship, which only applies to joint tenancy, not tenancy in common. Therefore, which one would you take with a corporation? Joint tenancy or tenancy in common? Which one would you take with a corporation? The answer would be tenancy in common. Good. Assessment. What's an assessment? An assessment. What's an assessment? An assessment would be finding the value for tax purposes. Assessments, finding the value for tax purposes. Good. They cannot be confused with the appraisal report because they use two different methods to find two different results, even though they're trying to find the same objective of finding value. Okay, unilateral contract. What's a unilateral contract? What's a unilateral contract? A unilateral contract has one promise, whereas a bilateral is a promise for a promise. So most option contracts are unilateral contracts. By definition, the word option means you do not have to do something. Therefore, those contracts would be unilateral. Typically, contracts are bilateral, which is a promise for a promise. I'll do this, and you agree to pay me. That's your standard contract agreement. It's an action for usually money, but it doesn't have to be. Specific performance, what's that? What is specific performance? Specific performance. So specific performance is a promise for an act. Excuse me, you're suing for somebody to do an act. Money won't suffice. So, for example, in an extreme case, this is an extreme case, you could sue somebody to sell their house because them giving you money won't suffice because there's no other house like the one that you have, and for whatever reason, the judge could deem that you did something bad and you have to go through with selling the house, and the money won't suffice. It's an extreme example, but it's the most clear one to help understand the concept. Because that's an example where the money won't do because you can't use that money and get another house just like it because there is no other one just like it. Brokers cannot sue for specific performance. So specific performance is a lawsuit to force somebody to perform an action. All right, guys. So that's it for today. I'm sorry about the problem with audio when we began. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock East Coast time, and you guys do the math where you are in between. Thanks, everybody. Good luck, Richard. He's taking his test tomorrow. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.